was the Emir of Qatar who ultimately secured Iran's agreement for this ceasefire, and Iran thanked him for brokering that deal. Can you just explain what the terms of that deal are? Because the detail is very scarce.
Now, as you rightly said, Becky, this came at a very difficult moment in the relationship between us and the Iranians. This came after the first attack ever in Qatar's history, a missile attack of such magnitude. And thankfully, our men in uniform were able to defeat this attack with 18 of the 19 missiles downed before they hit their targets, and only one hitting a place where there is absolutely nothing on the ground. So we're very proud of our men in uniform over this and our capabilities that were shown. Although this was the first attack, but it was very clearly what we needed in order to deter any threat that is coming in from the outside. And that is exactly the moment where we received the call from the United States. His Highness received the call from President Trump telling him that a deal was possible between Israel and Iran, and he asked on Qatar to play that role. And this is where our machine started working immediately. There was a call next morning between His Highness and the President of Iran, where he first of all apologized for the attack and wanted to ensure that he did not want to put Qatar in harm's way. And His Highness made it very clear to him that such an attack will not be accepted, that this goes against everything that has to do with the neighborly relations which we have had with Iran. It will not go unnoticed in the relationship between the two countries. But we chose at that moment, when we had all options on the table, we chose the pathway to diplomacy that would get the results done, that would get us out of the regional escalation. And we've said from day one that this regional escalation will reach us all. The Israeli attack on Parks, which is 200 kilometers away from our offshore facilities, the attack on Al Udeid base, the Qatari air base that houses more than 10,000 US servicemen and women, were both threats to our country that would never have existed if it wasn't for this escalation that has taken place. And the ability to reach this ceasefire, which is, as you said, thankfully is still holding, is very important for all of us in the region.
Majid, how much notice was Qatar given about these Iranian strikes on the US airbase? And what's your response to these reports suggesting that this was somehow coordinated with Qatar?
Well, Becky, I can tell you very clearly. Of course, there were intelligence information coming in about possible strikes on bases that house U.S. servicemen and women in the region as a whole, as we have seen, in Iraq and Kuwait and other places in the region. And that, of course, would include Al Udeid. So immediately we took precautionary measures by evacuating the base, because our main priority was the safety of our people, the safety of the people who work on the base. And the precautionary measures were put in place. Our air defenses were deployed, and we were absolutely ready. But that doesn't mean that it was not a surprise. It was unprecedented, and we did not expect the Iranians to do this at the same time that we are helping them with a lot of their regional issues through mediating between them and Israel, and them and the US. We always operated, with Iran in good neighborly policies. And as the Prime Minister said, this is a scar on the relationship between us and Iran, but we are willing to go forward because our choice, our leadership's choice, was always whatever that can be done to secure regional security.
We all know that Donald Trump, the US president, has said that he wants a grand deal, not just a ceasefire. Are you expecting a potential path forward on Israel-Hamas talks as part of this grand deal that Trump has pressured into existence? And what's the thinking at this point on US-Iran talks? There's two files there that I really want to get to the bottom of.
Becky, facing our own challenges, we are undergoing 10 different mediations right now in Qatar all around the world, including the talks between Iran and the United States and Hamas and Israel. If you read the statement issued yesterday by the Ministers of Foreign Affairs of the GCC who met here in Qatar in solidarity with Qatar after the attack, they mentioned very clearly that they hope that the success in brokering a ceasefire between Iran and the United States, mediated by countries from the region and supported by the US president, would also provide avenues for another deal between Hamas and Israel to end the bloodshed in Gaza. The situation in Gaza, it's now rhetorical to just say that it is inhumane. We are seeing the catastrophe go on unnoticed around the world at a time when there are 2.3 million people dying out of hunger, minutes away from food and facilities that would be able to treat them. And therefore, this is the time now for President Trump to push for it. And we believe that he is sincere about it, and his team with Steve Witkoff are sincere about it. And we are willing to help on that. As you know, we have been talking to all sides all through the past couple of weeks, including the past couple of days, to see if we can use the momentum created by the ceasefire between Iran and Israel. But of course, the efforts are still ongoing.
Your Prime Minister said Tuesday that Qatar hopes indirect Hamas-Israel talks can take place in the next 2 days. We've just heard from Donald Trump, who's at the NATO summit. When asked, he said he was hoping for something very, very soon. So there's hope, it seems, but there's also a very specific timeline. Is that timeline realistic from the Prime Minister, for example? And what does this deal look like that they will be discussing?
You know, Becky, in our line of business, you have no other option than to be hopeful. And while, as I said, the talks are still ongoing, we are still trying to get the positions of both sides closer, and we're still trying to convince both sides to get into talks again. We remain in contact with all sides in order to get to that reality. As I said, there was momentum created by the ceasefire between Iran and Israel, but we're not out of the woods yet. And there are a lot of details that I can't discuss right now about the deal in place, but I can tell you that it's the same parameters, you know, that keep going in and out of the talks. But we are trying to find that sustainable process that would bring us to lasting peace in the region, not only to ceasefires that last for a short period of time.